Natalya Lorne hadn't planned on crashing a beach bonfire that night, especially not wearing a hoodie with sand in her hair and zero patience left, but life had a way of throwing her into the unexpected. She hadn't even meant to stop. The plan was to clear her head after another failed job interview, walk along the coast, breathe, pretend everything was okay. Then she'd seen the soft flicker of firelight in the distance and heard the sound of laughter, and something about it tugged at her. "Hey," called a girl near the fire, waving her over. "You with the bakery group?" Natalya hesitated. Yeah, totally," she wasn't. But someone handed her a marshmallow on a stick anyway, and someone else passed her a cup of hot chocolate. And next thing she knew, she was sitting on a log staring at the ocean with the fire warming her back. And that was when she noticed him. He was crouched by the fire, carefully roasting a marshmallow like it was a science experiment. Tall, broad shoulders, messy dark hair, and a black Henley that looked like it cost more than her car. He didn't look like he belonged there either. There was something about the way he moved, calm, decisive. Controlled, he looked up and caught her staring. "Want one?" he asked, holding up the perfectly golden marshmallow. Natalya blinked. "That's the most professional marshmallow I've ever seen," he grinned, and it did something to her chest. "High standards," he said, placing it between two graham crackers and offering it to her. "I respect that." She took it, their fingers brushing. "Thanks, you here with the bakery?" "Nope," he said. "Thought you were." She narrowed her eyes. "Wait, so you're crashing too?" "Looks like it." He extended a hand. "Xander Holt." She took it slowly. "Natalya? Nice to meet you, fellow marshmallow thief." They both laughed, and it felt too easy for a girl who hadn't had an easy day in months. They talked for over an hour, sitting side by side on a driftwood log, watching the fire burn low. She learned he lived nearby for now and was between projects. He asked about her, and she told him the truth. She'd moved to the coast 6 months ago. She was trying to find work in graphic design. It wasn't going well. "You're talented," he said after she showed him some of her work on her phone. "You know that, right?" She shrugged. "I know I'm broke. Talent doesn't pay rent." "Maybe not," he said, "but sometimes the right person notices and everything changes." She tilted her head. "You always this optimistic," he smiled. "Only when I meet someone interesting." The way he said it low, steady, certain made her stomach flip. She looked away, suddenly too aware of how close they were. "You do this a lot?" she asked. "You know. Roast marshmallows for strangers on the beach," he laughed. "No, first time. So why now?" He looked at her for a long moment. Felt like something good might happen tonight, and then he stood. "Come on, I'll walk you back." They walked in silence, the moonlight casting silver across the sand. When they reached the edge of the boardwalk, she turned to him. "Well, thanks for the marshmallow. Any time," he said. "You coming to the bonfire tomorrow?" She hesitated. "There's another one." "There is now," he said, smiling. "I'll bring the chocolate. You bring the sarcasm." She laughed. "Deal?" She walked away, still smiling. She didn't see the matte black SUV parked under the palms. Didn't see the man in a suit waiting near it. Didn't hear Xander say, "Give me a minute," before following her with his eyes until she disappeared into the night. "Mr. Holt," said the man in the suit. "Your meeting in LA was moved. Do you want the jet prepped?" Xander shook his head, still staring at the spot where Natalya had vanished. "No, push it," he said. "I'm staying here for a while." The next day, she found herself back at the same beach at sunset, heart pounding for reasons she didn't want to unpack. She told herself it was just a walk, just checking. "Just there you are," Xander called, waving from the same log, fire already going. She tried to act casual. "Hey, didn't think you'd actually be here. Didn't think you'd actually come." He held up a bag of marshmallows. "But I prepared anyway, I'm a planner." She sat beside him. "You're weirdly good at this bonfire thing." "I like the quiet," he said. "People talk differently when there's fire and stars. Less noise, more truth." She looked at him sideways. "Is that a quote from a movie?" He shook his head. "Just something I figured out." She offered him a marshmallow. "Well, truth guy, tell me something real." He took the marshmallow and looked at her. I haven't stopped thinking about you since last night, she froze, and I don't usually say things like that. Natalya looked away. You don't know me. I'd like to. They sat in silence, fire crackling between them. I don't date, she said finally. I can't afford to get distracted right now. I'm barely holding it together. I'm not asking for anything, he said quietly. I just like talking to you. That's all. And somehow that was worse, because it felt real. It felt like the beginning of something. They met again the next night, and the next. And the next after that, he never pushed, never asked for more, just sat with her, made her laugh, listened. She started to open up. Started to feel safe. Then one night he wasn't there. She waited over an hour. No fire, no marshmallows, no Xander. She went home convinced she'd imagined it all. The next morning she walked into the corner cafe and froze. There he was, at the counter, talking to the owner. Buying out every single muffin. He turned, saw her, smiled. Well, I was going to surprise you with breakfast on the beach, he said, holding up a bag, but you beat me to it. She stared. You disappeared last night. I had to take a call, he said. I'm sorry. I should have told you, she crossed her arms. A call, he hesitated. It was work, complicated work. She raised a brow. You're a marshmallow consultant, he grinned. Something like that. She didn't push, not then. But later that day she Googled him, and her world tilted. Xander Holt, co-founder of Holt & Rowe, a tech company recently valued at over $80 million. She dropped her phone. The millionaire roasting marshmallows on the beach had just offered her his heart, and she had no idea what to do with it. Natalya stared at the screen, her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat. The man who'd been sitting barefoot by a fire feeding her marshmallows and quiet compliments wasn't just charming, he was loaded. Not just comfortable. Not just doing well. He was one of those people who had entire articles written about his strategic acquisitions and boardroom power plays. And he hadn't said a word. Slamming the laptop shut didn't make the truth disappear, but it gave her a second to think. The idea of him being rich wasn't what rattled her. It was that he had let her believe he was just like her. Ordinary, searching, floating, but he wasn't floating. He was flying in private jets, and she'd been making jokes about instant ramen and counting coins at the laundromat. By late afternoon, she still hadn't texted no, called no. She wasn't going to reach out at all. She needed time, distance, perspective. So she did what she always did when things got too loud inside her head. She went to the beach. Wind tugged at her hoodie as she walked along the shoreline, her boots leaving shallow prints in the sand. The tide was low, the sky overcast, and for once there wasn't a single bonfire in sight until she rounded a dune. He was there again, kneeling beside a fresh pile of driftwood, struggling with a lighter that clearly wasn't cooperating. His jacket was different, sleek, tailored, but his posture was the same, crouched in concentration, like the flame was the only thing that mattered. She stood behind him silently until he finally got it to spark. You lied, she said. He turned slowly, the flame catching the sharp lines of his face. I didn't, he said. I just didn't tell you everything. That's called lying by omission, she replied, arms crossed tight. He didn't argue. You looked me up. You didn't exactly make it hard. You could have just said something. I didn't want to. Natalya's eyes narrowed. Why? Because it's more fun pretending to be someone else. No, he said, rising to face her. Because the moment someone knows who I am, they look at me differently. I didn't want that from you. She blinked, wind catching strands of her hair. You thought I'd care that you're rich, not care, he said. Change. She looked away, jaw clenched. Well, it changes things. I know. The silence between them was taut. He moved closer. I didn't come here to play games, Natalya. I came to this town because I needed space. I met you because I needed something real. And you, he stopped, shook his head. I didn't expect you, she swallowed. That's not fair, I know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, she said, voice low. You're not just some guy who likes bonfires. You're someone who could buy this entire beach and turn it into a resort if you felt like it. I'd never do that, he said instantly. This place is perfect the way it is. That's not the point. I know, he said again, softer this time. Natalya stepped back, rubbing her arms against the breeze. I don't want to be someone's side project. You're not, he said. You're the first person who's made me feel like I'm not a commodity, like I'm just a man. But you're not just a man, are you? Her voice cracked. You have an empire, he exhaled. I walked away from it, she blinked. What? I walked out of a negotiation in Tokyo, left my phone on a tarmac, and flew here with nothing but a duffel bag. My team thinks I've lost it. Maybe I have. His voice dipped. But I couldn't keep building something I didn't believe in anymore, so I left. And then I met you. Natalya stared at him, the weight behind his words pressing into her chest. Why me? She asked. He gave a faint, almost bitter laugh. You looked at me like I was a person, not a paycheck, not a scandal, not a headline, just… Me. She folded her arms tighter, trying to keep her emotions buried beneath the chill. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I don't know how to be around someone like you without feeling like I'm waiting to get left behind. Xander stepped forward, carefully, deliberately. Then let's figure it out together. Natalya didn't answer. She couldn't. Her body was still, but her thoughts were sprinting. I need time, she whispered. You can have it, he said. All of it. He stepped back, picked up a small canvas bag from the sand and handed it to her. The faint scent of sugar and vanilla wafted out. I still brought marshmallows, he said with a soft tilt of his mouth. Didn't want to break tradition. She took the bag without replying. Her fingers brushed his and the contact burned like a spark. He didn't say anything else. Just nodded once and walked away, leaving her by the fire that was finally starting to catch. The next morning, she was sketching in the corner of the cafe when a woman she didn't recognize approached her table. Sorry to interrupt, the woman said, her tone polished but kind. You're Natalya, right? Natalya looked up. Yes, the woman smiled. I work with Mr. Holt. He asked me to deliver something to you. She placed a small velvet box on the table and left without another word. Natalya stared at it, heart hammering. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a key. Underneath it a note. It read, Studio space. Yours, no strings, just a place to create if you want it. There was an address scribbled beneath the words. She recognized the street. It was near the art district, tucked between two vintage bookstores. She clutched the key tightly, chest aching. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was trying to give her freedom, and that terrified her more than anything else. Natalya didn't go to the address right away. She walked past it twice over the next 2 days, pretending she wasn't staring at the glass storefront with the for lease sign now flipped to reserved. The building was tucked neatly into a corner of the old art district, its black-framed windows catching the late afternoon sun like polished obsidian. Inside, she could make out clean white walls and light oak floors, the kind of space she'd once sketched in her notebook under the heading, Someday. And now it was hers, or at least, offered. On the third morning, she found herself standing at the door with the key in her hand and no excuse left. The lock turned so smoothly, it barely made a sound. The smell of fresh paint and sawdust greeted her as she stepped inside. There was a long work table near the window, bare shelves lining one wall, and a stool in the corner with a folded note resting on top. She opened it. No signature this time. Just 7 words in neat handwriting. Use this place to tell your story. She sat down slowly, the key still in her hand, and didn't move for a long time. That night, she didn't go to the beach. She went home, pulled out her project binder, and started organizing it with purpose. For the first time in months, maybe longer, she had a reason to finish designs she'd abandoned halfway through. She stayed up past midnight sketching, hands smudged with pencil lead and eyes burning with the kind of exhaustion that came from creation, not defeat. By the end of the week, she'd started moving things into the studio: her laptop, her tablet, the box of supplies she used to keep under her bed. She didn't tell anyone. She wasn't ready for explanations she didn't have answers for yet. On the 7th night, she found him waiting outside the door. Xander leaned against the brick wall, a paper bag in one hand, his gaze fixed on the now lit interior behind her. You used the key, he said without preamble. She didn't pretend to be casual. I didn't ask for this, I know. But I need it, she added, voice quieter, his shoulders loosened. Good, she looked down at the bag in his hand. What's that? Dinner, he said, and a peace offering. She unlocked the door and held it open. You can come in, but no marshmallows, he smiled. No promises. Inside, they sat on the floor. There were no chairs, yet eating takeout from the local Thai place with plastic forks and mismatched napkins. She watched him as he glanced around the space, his expression unreadable. You look like you've been here before, she said. I scoped it out last year, thought about putting an office here, but it never felt right until now. Natalya rested her elbow on the windowsill. I'm not used to this, people doing things without expecting something in return. I'm not people, he said. She gave a dry laugh. That much is clear, he set his fork down. I don't want anything from you, not your gratitude, not your time, not your trust unless you decide to give it. Then what do you want? I want to be in your corner. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. He didn't push. Instead, he stood and walked to the nearest shelf, picking up one of her loose sketches. It was a logo design, bold, crisp lines with a hidden message in the negative space. This is good, he said. It's for a nonprofit that helps kids who age out of the foster system. They can't afford a designer, but I offered. That's the kind of thing you should be doing full-time. I don't have a client base. You will. Her throat tightened, but she didn't speak. He set the sketch down gently. I know this doesn't fix everything. But I meant what I said when I told you I believe in you. She looked at him then, really looked at him not as the man who had money or the man who'd been a mystery on a beach, but as someone who'd chosen to see her before the world did. You confuse me, she said. But not in a bad way. I can live with that. He left after that, quietly, without asking for anything. Just a soft touch to the sleeve of her shirt and a promise to call if she needed anything. She didn't go back to the beach for 2 more days. When she did, the fire was already lit. Xander was sitting on the same log, a thin folder in his hands. He didn't speak as she approached, just looked up and held the folder out to her. She hesitated before taking it. Inside were 6 mock-ups. Her designs, polished, packaged, professionally presented. I didn't touch the artwork, he said. Just had my team format it. They owe me favors. What are these for? There's a startup showcase in San Francisco next week. I submitted your work. She stared. You what? I told them you were a rising designer with a point of view they hadn't seen before. They agreed. I haven't even officially launched my brand. Then it's a good thing you've got 6 days. She let out a disbelieving breath. Are you trying to make me panic? I'm trying to make you visible. She folded the folder against her chest. You didn't ask first. I figured you'd say no. I probably would have. And yet here we are. She sat down beside him, folder still clutched to her chest. Why are you doing all this? She asked, not looking at him. He paused. Because I remember what it felt like to have something to give and no one to listen. And now I have more than I need. And you're the first person I've met in a long time who makes me want to give it away. She looked at him sharply. That sounds like a line. It's not. For a few moments, the fire crackled between them again, casting shadows on the sand. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I'm still scared, she said. So am I, he replied. And neither of them moved. The showcase was 3 days away when Natalya stepped onto the rooftop of the gallery space Xander had arranged for her final run through. The air had a softness to it, the kind of clean calm that only came after a fresh rainfall. She tightened her jacket and looked around, heart beating in her throat. The city stretched around her like a sleeping giant, all glass and quiet glow. The gallery lights behind her were still on, casting a warm reflection on the windows. Inside, her designs were mounted, spaced evenly, professionally, with her name stenciled in silver on the wall. Her name. She touched the lettering like it might disappear. You're early, Xander said behind her. She turned, not startled but aware. I couldn't sleep. He stepped closer, hands in the pockets of his coat. You didn't tell me you added new pieces. I didn't plan to. They just showed up in my head. He tilted his head slightly. The one with the compass, that's new. I called it north without permission, she said. It's about trusting your own direction when the map doesn't make sense. A pause, then. That's what you think you're doing, she gave a small shrug. Trying? You're not just trying. His voice was low, certain. You're doing it, she glanced at him. I still feel like I'm waiting for someone to tell me I don't belong here. No one gets to tell you that anymore. She looked away, but not before he saw the flicker of doubt cross her face. I booked the flight, he added after a moment. We leave in the morning. I'm not letting you walk into that room alone. She studied him for a long beat. You really don't care what people think about you stepping out of your world for this. I've never cared less about anything in my life. She turned back toward the city. My mother used to say that security was an illusion. That you could lose a job, a home, everything except your ability to adapt. What happened to her, she passed when I was finishing school, I was her contingency plan. She always said if she didn't make it, I had to. You are making it. I don't feel like it yet. You will. They stood in quiet for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling around them, then he pulled something from his coat pocket and held it out. I brought you something. She looked down. A small white stone sat in his palm, polished smooth by the ocean. A single word was etched into it in gold leaf. Anchor. He placed it in her hand. To remind you the shore is always there, even when you're in open water. She closed her fingers around it, throat tight. You keep doing this. Doing what? Giving me pieces of a life I didn't think I could have. I'm not giving you anything you didn't already deserve. She blinked quickly and turned her face away. I'm not good at this, she admitted. Letting people in. Letting them stay. I'm not asking to stay, I already did. He stepped forward carefully and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I know it's fast, he said. But I've built empires in less time than I've known you, and none of them felt like this. She couldn't breathe. I'm not the guy who shows up with flowers and clever lines, he went on, but I'm the guy who'll show up every time, no matter what. She met his eyes. You want this? Yes. Even if I crash and burn in San Francisco, he smiled, but not with amusement. Especially then. Her voice was barely above a whisper, and after that, his answer was immediate. For as long as you'll let me. She stepped into him, resting her forehead against his chest, the stone still clenched in her hand. I'm scared. So am I, he said again, wrapping his arms around her. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. They stood like that, the city humming softly around them, the faint scent of paint and ocean salt in the air. 2 days later, the gallery in San Francisco buzzed with murmurs and champagne flutes. Natalya stood in a sleek black jumpsuit, her hair swept back, the etched stone tucked inside her pocket like a promise. Her designs hung along the far wall, and a small crowd had gathered to study them, murmuring words like fresh and emotive and strategic. She didn't hear any of it, because she was watching Xander. He wasn't in a suit. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal blazer, his hand in his pocket as he spoke to a man in a tailored jacket who clearly recognized him. But Xander didn't look interested in the usual business talk. His eyes kept drifting to her. An organizer approached her with a clipboard, eyes wide. We've had 3 agencies ask if you're represented. Are you open to licensing? Yes. Her voice cracked. Yes, I'm open. Xander appeared beside her the moment the woman walked away. You okay? I think I might be, she said, dazed. You're going to get offers. I don't know how to choose. You don't have to decide tonight, she looked at him. What if I pick wrong? Then we learn together. She nodded slowly. Later that night after the event, he took her back to the rooftop of their hotel. The city lights below shimmered like stars scattered across a black velvet ocean. He didn't say anything at first, just pulled a thin box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a necklace, a delicate gold chain with a tiny charm in the shape of a flame. She stared. Is that our bonfire? He said. The first one, the one where you changed everything. She reached for it, but he pulled it back for a second. One condition. She raised an eyebrow. He stepped closer. You let me love you all the way, no hiding. No fear. She took the necklace and lifted it to her neck. That's not a condition, that's a confirmation. He fastened it for her, his hands lingering at the base of her neck. I'm all in, Natalya, he said quietly. No matter what comes next. She turned to face him. Then let's find out what that is. And when he kissed her, it wasn't a beginning. It was everything that came after. The morning after the showcase, Natalya stood barefoot on the balcony of their suite, watching the sunrise bleed across the San Francisco skyline. The air was crisp, laced with the scent of salt and something floral drifting from the rooftop garden below. Inside, she could hear the low hum of the shower running, but she didn't move. She had signed with a boutique design agency an hour after the event ended. A small, female-led firm that specialized in launching socially conscious brands. They'd approached her, not the other way around. It had felt different earned. A soft knock on the sliding glass door behind her broke her thoughts. Xander stepped outside, hair damp, sleeves rolled, barefoot like her. You disappeared on me. I needed a minute. He leaned against the railing beside her. You've got a lifetime of them now, she laughed under her breath. That sounds dangerously close to a proposal. He raised an eyebrow. Does it? She looked at him. If it is, it's too soon, he nodded. Then I'll wait. They stood there, side by side, the city stretching below and the sky blooming above. I want to go back today, she said after a long moment. I have things I need to finish. The studio isn't even fully set up yet. Already got the flight booked, he said. Figured you'd want control, she glanced at him. You're learning. I'm a fast study, he said. Especially when it comes to you. They flew back that afternoon on one of his jets. She didn't ask how many he had. The staff greeted them by name, and she tried not to let that throw her off. He didn't make a show of it. In fact, he spent most of the flight quietly reading through a thick folder labeled Exit Strategy. She didn't ask, and he didn't offer. But when they landed and the car dropped her at the studio, he didn't leave. He stepped inside with her, looked around at the still half-assembled shelves and boxes, then turned to her. I want to hand over Holt and Rowe. She stared at him. What? I've been working on the transition. Selling part, restructuring the rest. I'm stepping away completely, she blinked. You're serious? I wasn't happy before, he said. Not really, and I'm not going to keep building something that doesn't reflect who I am now. She crossed the room slowly. So what do you want instead? He looked around. Something that feels like this. Messy and unfinished, she teased. Real, he said. Rooted, alive. You're not going to start a design firm, are you? He grinned. I'd be a terrible designer. She tilted her head. So what then? Angel investing, quietly. Supporting projects that matter, startups, nonprofits, small businesses with heart, she blinked. You're turning into a softie. No, he said. I'm turning into myself. She didn't say anything for a moment, then walked to one of the unopened boxes and pulled out a framed photo. It was her and her mother taken on the last day they'd lived in their old apartment. Her mother was laughing, flower on her cheek, holding up a half-decorated cake. I want to name the studio after her, she said. Lorne & Co. He looked at the photo, then at her. Perfect. The weeks that followed passed in a blur of motion and momentum. Natalya opened her studio officially with a small launch party. Xander helped, but only when asked. He never hovered. Her client list grew slowly but steadily. People started to notice. She was featured in a regional magazine, then a national blog, then a podcast. Xander stepped back from Holt and Rowe entirely by summer. His name was still on the door, but his presence was gone. He bought a small home near the art district, nothing flashy, just a mid-century space with clean lines and a garden she immediately claimed for weekend coffee. They didn't rush things, didn't label it. But he was with her every night and they woke up together every morning. He learned how she liked her tea. She learned the exact brand of coffee he pretended not to be addicted to. Sometimes they said nothing for hours, and it felt like the best conversation either had ever had. One morning, she found a hand-drawn blueprint on her work table. What's this? She asked. He looked up from the couch. Your boutique. My what? I thought you'd want to expand, a space to showcase designers like you, ones who don't get noticed until someone insists they should be. She stared at the sketch. This is ambitious. You once told me talent doesn't pay rent, he said. I want to prove you wrong. They broke ground in early fall. By winter, the space was finished. They hosted the grand opening on the anniversary of her studio launch. Her name was on the door, hers and her mother's. Inside, the walls were lined with collections from designers just starting out, just like she had been. And at the center of it all, a glass case held the original sketch of North without permission. She turned to Xander as the guests filtered in. You did this, she whispered. No, he said. You let me help you do this. Then he pulled something from his jacket, a small velvet box. Her breath caught. I know you said it was too soon, he said, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. She opened the box slowly. The ring was simple, elegant. A single diamond flanked by 2 tiny gold leaves. It's not about the ring, he said. Or the timing. It's about the fact that I want to wake up next to you in 10 years and still ask what kind of tea you want. She laughed, tears in her eyes. You already know, I do, and I want to know more. Everything, forever. She didn't hesitate. Yes. The room erupted in cheers, but she didn't hear any of it. She was already in his arms. They married in the spring on the same beach where they first met. No suits, no shoes, no script. Just drifting petals, a circle of friends, and the sound of the ocean. She walked toward him barefoot, the hem of her dress trailing through the sand, the charm around her neck catching the sun. He waited for her with his sleeves rolled and his heart open. They didn't write vows. They didn't need to, because everything they'd built, every fire, every fight, every quiet moment was already a promise, and when they kissed, the breeze carried the scent of salt and sugar, a reminder of marshmallows and beginnings. Years later, her boutique expanded to 3 cities. She ran mentorship programs, hosted design competitions, and taught workshops in underfunded schools. She never forgot where she came from, or who helped her see where she could go. Xander built his new venture around people, not profits. He chose investments that aligned with purpose, not prestige. He stayed behind the scenes, but everyone who mattered knew who was pulling strings with humility and heart. They traveled. They argued. They made up on rooftops and rainy sidewalks. They danced in kitchens and wrote notes on napkins. They lived every day like they had something to lose and something even greater to hold. And on the mantle of their shared home, framed in gold, sat a single word etched into stone: anchor. Because from the moment they met, that's what they'd been to each other. Not a lifeline, but a home.